the crude oil dries, we'll switch to natural gas.
We'll switch to natural. But something has to happen that doesn't bring in money as easily as crude oil does, because really, how much stakes do we really invest in crude oil? And look at what we get in terms of the benefits. For you to be able to make something of agriculture, go and ask the countries that have done so. A country must be deliberate. It must pay attention. It must pay attention to smallholder farmers. It must pay attention to, mid-scale farmers. It must pay attention to large-scale farmers. It must pay attention across the chain. It must pay attention to transportation. It must pay attention to electricity, because it is what is going to be valued or, used for storage. It must pay attention all through the year round. It's not just going to be paying attention to the price of, one commodity on the market, because it will look like that's all we do. If only we had that attention span. And it must not just pay attention to all of these things, it must also pay attention to coordination. Don't forget that the federal government, is also as responsible for agriculture as the states. But the federal government has very little land. I think perhaps the only land that the federal government is really responsible for is the land here in the FCT, and those that the states wish to cede to the federal government, which oftentimes is very little. So the states are where you have these lands. You have to now work on collaboration. So if we're truly interested in agriculture, if we really want to put our money where our mouth, because it's not just about talking. If you really want to put your money where your mouth is, the profits, not just in terms of what you make in terms of revenue as a country, but in terms of the benefits to the people will be enormous. One of the downsides of crude oil, and I think that's what we saw for many years when Nigeria was growing at this, astronomical rate. GDP was ballooning. We seemed to be doing okay on the surface. People were wondering, how could we be doing so well on the surface? Your GDP looks good. You're not borrowing so much, yet your people were living in abject poverty. It is because the place where we're getting a lot of the revenue was having very little impact on the people. But if you pay attention to agriculture, because of the extensive value chain and the number of people involved, the kind of figures we're seeing in terms of unemployment will certainly be reduced. The sort of involvement as per the benefits that would accrue to the individual pockets of Nigerians will certainly be felt. It's a no-brainer. So you have to ask, why haven't we paid the required attention to this particular sector? Why? It's a big question. I think it's one that we'll keep asking state governors, especially those who are coming in now. Why is it that this sector, what exactly are they farming in their own states with the God-given land that has been, we've been blessed with? Nigeria, you throw anything anywhere, it starts to sprout almost the very next day. You don't even have to put it on land. Put it in a pot and see what I'm talking about. So I'm hoping that, we will pay a little. I mean, I'm just taking a look at this headline now. Agri sector defies 1.8 trillion naira loan infusions. You have to ask, where did all the loan go? You put in so much money, yet it's not about throwing money at it. It's about paying attention to what is really happening in the sector. We've done this before. We can do it again. Even right now, we're still doing it. I think I wanted us to focus on why we're not exporting. I think that's part of the questions you raised. And that's because, it's not because we haven't attempted to. You talked about yams. I think a few years ago, we said there are like 4 containers or how many containers of our yam that got to New York. By the time they got to New York, they were all rotten. Why? We used too much fertilizers. The other day in the EU, our beans were returned back to Nigeria. Why? We put too much pesticides. And that even raises questions as to what we ourselves are consuming in Nigeria. People say, oh, make sure you parboil your beans before you cook it, because if you don't see weevils in it, it might tell you that there is too much pesticides in it. And that eventually could affect health. So we need to pay attention to agriculture. It is good. The benefits are enormous, not just in terms of the monetary benefits, the health benefits, its impact in terms of lifting people out of poverty, the fact that a nation will be, healthy, robust, very well fed. There's no reason why we should spend as much as we do in terms of importing food. But perhaps, I mean, these are my own thoughts. I might be able to tell you how we might be able to get around this and really make something of our agricultural sector.
Well, Mokwe, maybe we have outvoted Neta this morning concerning petroleum and crude oil. Maybe it should just dry up. Yeah, because I look back to the First Republic. Before the First Republic, before the military interregnum of the mid-60s or thereabout, Nigeria was competing fairly well among themselves, the major regions. Another notes at the time had the groundnut pyramids in the north, cocoa in the southwest, and the gold or oil rigs or whatever we had in the southeast at the time. All those things were there, and guess what? They were competing healthily among themselves, and the nation was doing quite well until oil came. So maybe, I mean, and the reality is there. I mean, if you ask some people, they will give you the figures of how much liters or tons or whatever of crude oil that we have left, of gas that we have left. So maybe when we don't have those things anymore, maybe we will get there. But do we have to get to that point when we know that we know the opportunities? Look at the thing you're seeing on your screen now. It got to a point that palm oil was taken from, samples of it were taken from Nigeria, from what I understand, taken to Malaysia, and guess what? It's not to my understanding that we now export palm oil, which I remember my grandmom used to make right there in the southwest of Nigeria. So maybe we need some rude awakening. But I'm sincerely hoping we don't have to get there. Marco, you've listed all the opportunities that are there for within and without Nigeria. Come on, we can do this. As Mark, you said, I mean, I remember growing up, my mom would just, water from, she's about to go, she's going to send me to grind pepper. And guess what? The water with which she's washed the pepper, she pours it outside into a garden right behind her window. And guess what? 1 week after, the thing is sprouting. That's the kind of land that we have in Nigeria, and guess what? It's a built-up area in motion at the time. So we have everything it takes. All we need to do is put our thinking caps on. Just recently, we got from the NEPC that Nigeria exported $252 million worth of raw cashew last year. Just cashew, $252 million. How much have we borrowed in recent time? Just imagine that we focused on these products that Neta mentioned the other time, and then we don't have to borrow any money. We only need to scale up our production capacity. And guess what? We don't have to borrow any money. So what really is the issue? Farmers, those in the agri sector will tell you the quantum, almost 1/3 of what is produced in the farms are lost. They perish at the farms. Why? Because they are not able to transport them out. And the cost of products in the farms compared to what you find in urban Nigeria is not even imaginable. So what is the missing gap? Yes, Mark, I agree with you. Maybe we need some rude awakening, and I sincerely hope we don't have to get there.
Well, rude awakening, it might... Where we need rude awakening, but the truth is, as we've all agreed here, we don't need to get there. Because we talked about investment in agriculture. Exactly, where is that investment going to? Because we're exporting raw cashew. If you go to Benue State, I mean, when I was doing the environment program, I went to visit a community in Benue State where they grow peppers, where they grow oranges. A basket, big basket of peppers, a big basket of oranges could go for as little as 1,000 naira because there is no means to transport it to the market in time to sell at a premium price, and it will still be at a good rate. What's wrong with investing in processing so that we can get the premium from our product? So when we say we're investing in all of these things, what exactly are we investing? Are we throwing the money into fertilizer? Yes, we're using too much fertilizer and our products are returned. Now the Export Processing Promotion Council says it's going to support those farming cashew nuts because of the amount of money that could be the demand out there. Maybe they should also support those growing cassava because of the amount of demand for cassava products. But beyond all of that is, when we're investing, are we investing in buying it all up? Because there was a time where there were commodity houses that would, you're doing a product, you're growing a product in the state. The state government comes in, buys it all up, puts it together, for export? What are the states doing? Can we all come together and unite in holding our government accountable? Not enough to say, hey, it's not a political party thing, it's about governance. Can we all come together and hold our government at the state and local government levels? As Mark has reminded us, it's the state governments that own the land, not the federal government. Can we hold them accountable in how they use our land? Not just allocating the land for building houses or for personal aggrandizement, but for productive activity like agriculture. Can we think about that as we take a moment and return to look at what the papers have to say?
So let's take a look at what the papers have for you this morning. And I'm a little partial, perhaps, because I live here in Abuja. We're starting off with the Abuja Inquirer and take a look at what they have on the front page. In major swoop, FCT police rescue 58 kidnapped victims. And that's a lead story. One victim killed in shootout. Man o' war gunned down gang leader. Operations covered Kogi, Nasarawa states. So that's a lead story there. In major swoop, FCT police rescue 58 kidnapped victims.
Did I hear man o' war gunned down?
Oh, that's what I read too. So
man o' war carry arms now?
You might want to flip to page 3 to know how that happened. Don't jump to conclusions just yet. Very interesting backstory to some of these lead headline stories that you read. Part of it, well, let's not deal in rumors. Let's just go with what is on the front page of the Abuja Inquirer this morning. Look at this. Panic as plane crash lands at Abuja airport. Flight delayed. The story is on page 3 of the paper. Well, thanks be to God that, you know, it was not... It was an accident. It wasn't fatal, thank God. You know, people survived, and the same all aboard were safe after that particular incident. NAMI FRS chairman wins ICANN Merit Award is on top of the paper for you. You also look at this. Abuja to beef security around public schools. FCTA demolishes 10,000 illegal structures in 8 years. The question is, what were you looking at while those structures were being erected? How did they get erected in the first instance? So much going on around building and planning in a city like Abuja. I'm sure other states do also have their problems. But it does look like very little attention is being paid to what is being done in the city. And then when the structures eventually go up, then you now see the demolition tractors coming around.
Even though all of the states, all of the cities have development control or building control agencies, you begin to wonder, what are those people there working there being paid for? When they bring you the architectural plans, do you look at them? Do you even look at them in relation to the master plan of that city? Because every city has a master plan. Is that even considered? Or I come and say, Mark, well, here is my architectural plan, and here is something for a cup of tea, and then you look the other way. Is that what's going on?
Precisely what happens. I mean, only recently we're told about multidimensional poverty. And part of the reason why a lot of states fell into that category was because they didn't even have play areas for their children. There are no recreational areas. And if you go around Abuja right now, it will surprise you to know that areas that were earmarked for recreation are also now being given to developers for them to erect structures. Really very sad, but that's what we see.
and all the developments are being built, all the estates.
Everywhere.
Very few have playgrounds in it for children, not to talk of adults and all of that.
That's how we think. Well, then let's leave it there for the Abuja Inquirer.
Well, the New Telegraph is the next one, and what they lead with is the Senate presidency. Yari, yes, Yari, former governor, to form alliance with PDP, offers DSP to Southeast. Yari to form alliance with PDP, offers DSP to Southeast. That's their lead story. It's on page 3 and 4. A lot of conversations around the leadership of the National Assembly, and one begins to wonder why so much pressure on who becomes the Senate president and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. See the writers. Meet Atiku behind closed doors in Bayelsa. Northwest senators elect back Yari. Their PDP counterparts reject Akpabio. Alliance unsettles Tinubu Akpabio APC leadership. And the Southeast Senate caucus urges Tinubu to ensure region gets presidency. For page 3 and 4, and I think that's part of our conversation today. But above that, Senate indicts Ogun-Osun River Basin over 726 million naira contract scandal. Check page 6. This one interests me because I love policemen. Yesterday, my son saw a group of policemen. I said, Daddy, why are there so many policemen here? I had to walk up to them and say, sorry, why are you guys here? You're so many. And they said they were escorting some produce from Kaduna down to Abuja because of the roads and all of that. I said, okay, well done. My son told them, well done, bye. He now says, I'm a friend of the police. I said, okay, interesting. It's a good one.
We'll know whether the police is his friend much later.
The police is his friend, please. So, PSC, as the Police Service Commission says, we've approved 1,007 recruits' outstanding payments. That's on page 4. We go there and find out what outstanding payments we're waiting for. Decision in national security interest coming from the chairman of the PSC. Workers' agitation for more wages not peculiar to Nigeria, says the Labour Minister Ngige. Page 4. Now, this one's for health. New emerging COVID-19 variants can increase number of infections and deaths. And NCDC. Check page 5 for details of that. Now, you see that picture there? Peter Obi sitting with Soyinka. Yeah. Nobel laureate Professor Wale Soyinka with Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi during his visit to Soyinka in Ogun State yesterday. But below that, Reps leadership, Wase Betara, Jaji, Soli Meet, forge alliance against Abbas. Open talks on common aspirant for speaker. The back and forth. And we'll leave it here. But see this one, Imo. Police accuse Taylor detained since April 15 of killing policemen on April 21st. That story is on page 31. Was he detained in the same police station? How did he get his freedom to kill policemen on April 21st? Why was he detained? What was he detained for? Well, go to page 31 of the New Telegraph and find out more about that story. And that's it from the New Telegraph.
Well, while that is going on in the National Assembly, the courts will open as well. This Nigeria gives you a hint of that on its front page. Legal fireworks begin. As Presidential Election Tribunal begins sitting today, parties upbeat, confident justice will be served. I love this. Parties upbeat, confident justice will be served. So when justice is served, is everyone going to be happy about it? Story is on page 2 of the paper this morning. Right under the picture on the front page, 68 medical doctors, others escaped death as Max Air crash lands at Abuja Airport. Authorities shut down airport several hours. Aviation workers blame FG for one runway. Find that story on page 5 of the paper this morning. Right beside the nameplate, of course, you have that one, Sudan. Over 800 Nigerian evacuees arrive Abuja. That story is on page 18 of this Nigerian newspaper. A quick look at Nigerian News Direct this morning. This is what you have. Also interested in the National Assembly. Senate presidency. Tinubu, Buhari loyalists in last-minute battle. Whatever that means, front page of Nigerian News Direct will give you details of that one this morning. Story you'll find on page 2. Right under that story, emulate Sir Ahmadu Bello's leadership qualities. Buhari tasks politicians. Find that story also on page 3 of the paper. But the leadership of the National Assembly is not also lost on the paper this morning. Right above the nameplate, 10th National Assembly leadership. Zoning suffers as tough political gimmicks plunge parties in confusion. Find the rest of it on page 3 of the paper this morning. And with the Nigerian News Direct, we conclude a look at the papers this morning, but some of them are on our lineup this morning. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Lobbying for the next Speaker of the House of Representatives continued to intensify ahead of the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly. At this meeting in Abuja, some newly elected members of the House of Representatives under the aegis of New Vision are lobbying members from the South to elect the current chairman, House Committee on Appropriation, as the Speaker of the 10th Assembly. The meeting, which has members drawn from 4 political parties, including the PDP, Labour Party, APC, and the New Nigeria People's Party, believes strongly that they will not be bound by the zoning arrangement of any political party.
We have been hearing some rumors of zoning and all of that. But those of us in the National Assembly, if you know, the National Assembly is an entity on its own. It's independent. Those of us in the National Assembly want to support a speaker who is our own, a speaker who will defend democracy, a speaker who will protect the interests of members, a speaker who will help us deliver on the dividends of democracy. So whatever they decide cannot be binding on us.
What we are thinking is the credibility of the personality that is supposed to be the Speaker of the 10th Assembly, who can be more productive and that can bring unity, cohesion, and understanding for us to be able to have a credible and purposeful leadership that will work together with the executive with the view to make Nigeria better.
In a similar development, youths from the North Central region are asking that the next Speaker of the House of Representatives should come from the North Central.
The Middle Belt zone in Nigeria has never, since democracy had speakership. We wish to implore all concerned stakeholders, particularly members-elect of the House of Representatives, to support Honorable Idris Wase. This personality has all it takes by experience, by knowledge, by virtue of service.
Over 60% of members in the incoming House of Representatives are first-timers. This number, no doubt, has the capacity to decide the fate of the next Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Welcome back. Now, that conversation around the leadership of the National Assembly has been going back and forth, even though in the Constitution it said that they will be allowed to select their own leadership from amongst themselves. There have been speculations and permutations to what region, to what zone, and indeed some have reached out to party leaderships, different party leaderships, to say support this, support that. Even the president-elect say, hey, this is who we think he should go to. And there's been that unconfirmed reports that the support hasn't given to a particular zone and to a particular individual. But we're not saying anything here. We're asking questions. Is it really necessary, the back and forth about the leadership of the National Assembly? Is that what should be focused on instead of what would they be going in there to do? What laws, what bills are they going to be proposing? What area of the Constitution would they be thinking to get amended? What side of the Electoral Act will be... What exactly are they going there to do to help Nigerians enjoy the democratic process and governance that they are all looking forward to? Well, to help us answer all of these questions, we have here in the studio a former chairman, House of Representatives Committee on Rules and Business, former chairman, Senate Committee on Rules and Business, emeritus advisor to the President on National Assembly Matters, Senate, former governorship aspirant, APC Akwa Ibom State 2023. Please join us to welcome Senator Ita Enan. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I almost applauded when he said, please join us to welcome. Oh, but it's good to see you. It's been a while.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been a while. Thank you very much.
How are you doing, sir?
I was in the trenches.
In the trenches?
Yes, and we're out again.
And you look like you're relaxed.
What a relief.
Relief?
For a short while.
Why a short while? Why do you say it's a short while?
For the short while that I have been off.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. But let's look at this matter. And for one who's been, you've been in the National Assembly from the House of Representatives, chairing the Senate, the Committee on Rules and Ethics.
Rules and Business.
Rules and Business. Both at the House of Representatives level, the Green Chamber and the Red Chamber. So you would understand exactly what should be going by the laws of the land.
Yeah.
So why do we need this back and forth?
What do you call the back and forth?
We're supporting this person, give it to this person, give it to that person. When it is stated in the Constitution, and you will know the Constitution better, that they will select their leadership from amongst themselves.
Yeah.
It paints a picture of there's not supposed to be an interference from outside. Allow them to choose their leadership amongst themselves. Is that what the law says?
It doesn't just paint a picture, it is the true position. And whatever is going on in the political space now is nothing strange. Nothing strange because under the Constitution, under the standing orders, it is still the members who will choose their leaders from amongst themselves. And it is only their votes. But the political parties in power will always want to play the role of balancing. Balancing in terms of ensuring that if the president comes from this block of the country, the vice president comes from the other block of the country, the Senate president, who is the third in hierarchy, in protocol, and in command, let me use the word advisedly, in the country should come from another side to balance it. The speaker, who is number 4, should come from the other side. The deputy Senate president, who is number 5 or 6, should come from the other side, and then the deputy speaker should come from the other side. Because these are the highest influencing people, and there are 6 geopolitical zones of the country, and it's always intended to make sure it balances. Again, it is always intended that if you don't do that, you may have the opposition parties is always very active also, trying to make sure that they produce or they frustrate you. Even if they don't produce, even if they don't frustrate, they make sure you sweat so that you know that there is the opposition party and that the opposition party. An opposition party, like we had the AD at that time and the APP at that time, they had almost always come together to ensure that they frustrate the PDP what was in government at that time. And even if they don't frustrate, they make sure you sweat. So it is nothing absolutely unusual. But finally, the decision as to who become the speaker or the Senate president or the deputy or in each of the cases will definitely come from amongst their members.
So while we're talking about the parties seeking to to ensure that whatever goes on in there works in their favor, what happens to the wishes of the people that the legislators are there to represent?
That is the electorate generally.
The electorate generally.
The electorate have surrendered their power and their votes to the
members-elect and the senators-elect. And so the member who will be, the senator-elect who will be voting to choose a Senate President or Deputy Senate President or a Speaker or the Deputy Speaker is exercising the power which had been conferred on him by their people and which has been confirmed by the Independent National Electoral Commission through the certificate of return.
So would it be wrong for them to find out from the constituents what they would want or who they would want before going in there to vote, instead of depending on what the party or the leadership of the party tells them?
I think that rarely happens, but I want to think that they would each do that. But then at this stage, they have been asked to represent, and at that time they have not been sworn in, you know. So I think they will still consult their people. But then they are coming on the platform of the party. They will have to listen to, they will have to relate and consult with the party to make sure they have a balance. But at the same time of listening and consulting with the party should ensure that you have their agreement, you have their understanding, you have their buy-in, because no matter the level of zoning you do, the level of choosing you do, it is the level of consultation, in-house agreement, the level of persuasion and buy-in of the senators-elect and members-elect that will produce the ultimate person. Because if you do not, and the party, in taking a decision one way or the other, will have to consult with them in advance.
That's the members-elect.
The members-elect now. And then you find out what is their preference. You find out what is the constitutional provision. You find out what is their leaning. You find out who is it that has the kind of content, let me use the word content, in all particulars, that the members will want. And then, but also you can make a general appreciation of them by saying, look, this one has gone here, this one should go here, this one, and you seek their opinion. And if you don't do that, you will have the Tambuwal Mulikat situation, or you'll have the Dogara situation. And if you are not tactical enough, you will have the Saraki Ekweramadu 2-0 situation.
Oh, well, this is interesting you say it's 2-0.
Yeah.
I was just, first and foremost, I disclosed to you that, this conversation, you'll find out eventually that these people will pick who they eventually want to pick. Yeah. We can only permutate and wonder where it is. What I also find very interesting, on my way to the city this morning, I found out that, there are some lawmakers who are also putting up banners, on the streets. And I'm wondering, to what end are Nigerians going to be voting in this thing? Who precisely are they trying to appeal to? Is this the general public, or is it their fellow members who they think might be, who might be saying this? Why do members do that? Because I would have thought that if you're lobbying, your lobby will be within the region of the National Assembly. If the banners were around the National Assembly complex, I would not be surprised. But for it to be outside on the streets, it's very interesting what is going on in Abuja. For those who are wondering what I'm talking about, on the streets of the city, as if we were still in the campaign season. Yeah. There are thoughts flying to my head. What exactly is this about? Are we the ones voting for these people? Isn't this an internal affair of would-be members of the National Assembly?
Yeah, it's not abnormal, because some of the senators and members-elect are coming from different constituencies or senatorial districts in the country. And most of them have not met themselves. And most of them are new. And they may not know the phrases you are talking about. That's number one. Number two, most of these adverts are not put up by the senators-elect or members-elect by themselves. They're put on by supporters, persons who think that this is what they will do. When we're campaigning, you'll see some of your supporters or a group of people picking up the bills of your billboard in a particular area, a particular senatorial district. And when you come, there will still be some of your supporters who think they are doing you a favor by putting up your billboard. But of course, I think that it is not abnormal, because even when we came and were campaigning for Senator David Mark, for a second term, it was still necessary, because there are persons who may not have been familiar with Senator David Mark. And of course, you just have to excite the political space.
That's basically what it is about, exciting the political space. I mean, because some people say we've had enough of excitement.
Yes.
The election season gave us more than maybe an overdose of excitement. We're trying to get rid of that now. But take a look at what is currently happening. I mean, yesterday I listened to data analyst Babajide Ogunson. We'll talk about how it has gone down in previous assemblies, the permutations in terms of when the president is from a certain region, his vice president is from the other region, and then I think, let me just be very specific. It says when the president is from the north. Yeah. Oftentimes we've seen that the Senate president will also be from the north. When the president is from the south, oftentimes we see the Senate president is also from the south. He also said that there were exceptions. We've seen exceptions to the rule where during the time of President Goodluck Jonathan, Senator David Mark continued to remain Senate president. So this time around, it does appear that the APC is zoning this to the south. The question is, where in the south? We've seen lawmakers from the southeast of the country saying, for the sake of balance and for the sake of giving everyone a sense of belonging, that it should go to the southeast. The south is also saying, look, we gave the APC perhaps the highest number of votes we've ever given in any recent election, and so they also rightfully deserve the Senate presidency. Tell us how this is eventually decided. What really plays a role in terms of parties settling for the regions that produce, say, the Senate president or the Speaker of the National Assembly?
Sometimes you could have a situation that the party, but it's been like a custom, unwritten convention, that wherever you have the Senate president the president of the country, the Senate president goes to the other block, goes to the same block that is between the north and the south. We saw in the Obasanjo era that the south had the deputy speaker, the southeast had the Senate president throughout all the period, the 2 terms, and the north had the vice president. It also had the speaker, and it also had the deputy president of the Senate, which was zoned to the North Central at that time. Now, this time is almost all the same, because the president-elect is from the Southwest. The Senate president is oscillating. I have seen permutation zoning it to the South. I haven't seen a statement written by the party, but of course it shouldn't, because at this time, whatever the party does, the opposition and the aggrieved within the ruling party will want to capitalize it and form an alliance to present the other situation I described as 2-0. So I think that what the party has done is to throw the kite, push it out to the public. It has permeated. It has done a pointer that the Senate president should go to the south. It has also done a pointer that the deputy speaker should go to the southeast. Also done a pointer that the deputy Senate president should go to the northwest, and the deputy and the speakership should also go to the northwest.
Northwest or North Central?
Northwest, I seem to hear. But I am of the opinion that it is inappropriate and it's difficult to firm up, because I know our party is always just and trying as much as possible to balance the interest of all parts of the country. Although it hasn't happened in the present, because in the present, the Southwest has the vice president, and it also has the speaker. You know, it has number 2 and has number 4. But then that was when because of the pool of the APC, almost unchallenged pool of the APC there, and there was there may not have been, I don't want to say there wasn't, enough to gather support for Southeast for speakership at that time. And again, there was the decision of the members on the floor. I don't want to justify anything. Now, I just want to tell the party, if what I have read, because nobody has signed that statement, and the national chairman of the party, I have not heard it from his mouth that this is what the National Working Committee of the party has decided. I think what is done now may just be like political kites, you know, seeing how trying to measure the reverberations, you know. I haven't heard him say that the speakership should go to the Northwest, because you cannot, it will not be appropriate to keep the North Central vacant. It will be most appropriate, very appropriate, to give the Northwest Deputy President of the Senate and give the North Central speakership. You know, in the last election and the last 1 or 2 elections, the North Central have always said, look, we're bat-like or something, that in the North, we've got challenges. With the South, we have challenges. And that is why they went to form what they call Southern and Middle Belt Forum, to make sure that sometime when their interest is not protected in the other bloc, their interest should also be protected, should again be protected by this other bloc. So it will not be appropriate, and I will want to urge our party that if they have firmed up the Northwest for Deputy President of the Senate, which I think it will be appropriate, they should please give the North Central the speakership. I'm not in a position to challenge the party. Mm-hmm. I'm a party loyal member, but then the party should think and reason again that the members will and can sit among themselves and say, look, let Senate President go here and go here. And then say, look, they have obeyed you here. They will want to take a decision that is just to the country here. After all, it is there, the members, that will go back home and take the backlash of their people. Mm. And it will be difficult to tell members and senators from Taraba, which I'm correct, Plateau, Nasarawa, Benue, Kogi, Kwara, and Niger, that they went and voted for South for Senate President, Southeast for Deputy Speaker, then Northwest for Deputy Senate President, and again Northwest for Speaker. What did you bring back home? So let the party think that the members who are going to vote on the floor owe explanation to their people at home, not just bringing back one of the offices, but why did you go to do such injustice to the other people? These are the things that the party should think, should consider and reconsider in firming up their positions.
Well, it's a good thing that you have already, stated what you think in terms of what you're hearing that that's your party has done so far.
Which I've not firmed up.
Yes,
I want to be safe.
But you haven't, told us how these positions are decided. What are the factors that really play an influence? If these positions have been zoned according to what you're hearing, even though you say it's not confirmed, what are the factors that have decided that? In something as contentious, a role as contentious as that of the Senate President, and you can see the amount of lobbying going into that particular role, what should be the ultimate decider in knowing whether it should go to the South-South or the Southeast? Do votes count? Does balance count? What precisely counts?
The votes you delivered to the party in the election counts. The number of people who are likely to vote for that particular office on the floor of either the Senate or the House of Representatives counts. And the total tally of political balancing of what is just counts. The members themselves, the senators elect and honorable members-elect, will also have, there is a principle that we have on the floor of the Senate and the House of Representatives. And the principle is that when you come on the platform of the party and you step on the green carpet of the House of Representatives as a member, your party dissolves and you become a Nigerian. Your oath becomes to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and your party, with the greatest respect, takes a second role. Whenever you step your foot on the red carpet of the chamber of the Senate, your party dissolves. Your party takes a second role. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria takes precedence, and doing justice to all takes precedence. So these are all the things that will bear on the floor, on the mind of members. And of course the fact that whenever and wherever they vote and produce, they still have to account to their people back home what they have done, how just it is, not just to themselves or to their bloc, but how fair and just they have been to the other parts of the country. Because if you're not fair to that part of the country, you'll have to face some kind of repercussion in terms of security crisis, in terms of either food crisis, in terms of political instability, in terms of agitation from even outside, not the placard kind of protest, because those placard kind of protesters, they're just hired from Gariki, and they're not actually the people who protest. They're simply commercials.
There's something you said. Our colleague in Lagos will have some questions for you, but there's something you said here that does not exactly, well, I mean, if you put it against what you had said earlier about what the party wants, what the leadership of the party wants, and what actually plays out in the House or in the chambers. You said when you step into any of the chambers, the party and everything the party has, so to speak, said dissolves. You are now a Nigerian representing the citizens of Nigeria. If that be the case, and the Constitution tells us that a president and deputy of the Senate shall be elected by the members of the House amongst themselves.
From amongst themselves.
From amongst themselves. How does that play as against what the party wants? Because they've been instructed by their party, go for this person, go for that person. And Mark asks a question, what criteria would be used when it comes to voting? But you just said that one of the rules says when you step in here, forget your party. You're not in Nigeria.
No, it's not a rule.
It's not a rule.
It's not in the Constitution.
But it's a given.
It's a given. And it is, you first take the oath of allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Constitution.
Okay.
That is that. But not that you are not bound by your party, because after all, you will take your role according to the party. But we saw a situation that whether a people vote for that political party or not, when you are doing appropriation, you have to provide for that area, although they did not vote for them, because they have a representative on the floor. And not that your party doesn't really matter, because the party will also want to make sure it exerts influence. It exerts influence. We had Bajabia Miller, when he came in as a minority leader, as it were. He was a minority from the minority party, but he always made sure that the party and what his party wants plays out very seriously, even if it doesn't succeed. But just make say we don't come. So members will still want to, if they don't cause anything, they can cause a stalemate that the proceeding doesn't go on. So that is what the parties are supposed to do. That's what minority parties are supposed to do. Today, that party has transformed to become a majority party, and they're now facing it from PDP and others. So all I'm saying is that, not that the party doesn't really matter, but you are bound to give precedence, great precedence and great attention to the provisions of the Constitution and doing justice to all. What they will also have to consider is what they call ranking, in terms of choosing whether we've come back a first time, a second time, and whether you have experience in managing the floor, because to be a Senate president or a speaker, you must have been able to manage, you must have managed crisis before, or you must have been part of a crisis before, you must have sat on this side before you want to go up to sit on the other side, so that you know how this side feels, you know what we call the politics of the floor, the temperature of the floor, political temperature of the floor, and the temperament of the floor.
Let's flip over to Lagos. I know Ayo has been wanting to get a question through.
Well, thank you, Malkwe. Just a quick one, Senator. First of all is the issue of zoning. Every time we talk about zoning, I'm wondering if there is a legal position or a legal validation for that zoning thing, because we all know, for those who know, those who do not know may also learn that this whole idea of zoning started in 1993 when during the constitutional amendment process, it was suggested by the former Vice President Alex Ekweme under the Abacha government at the time. Is there anywhere in our law books that says, okay, it is valid, we have 6 geopolitical zones? It is recognized, or is there a legal position, a legal validation for 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria?
Yeah, there is. I think there are many laws that talks about it. Even the standing orders of the Senate has said in Order 3, Rule 2.4 that first, I think I will, please let me just take a little bit of it. It says nomination of senators to serve as presiding officers and appointment of principal officers and other officers of the Senate or on any parliamentary delegation shall be in accordance with the ranking of senators. In determining ranking, the following order shall apply. Senators returning based on number of times re-elected, senators who had been members of the House of Representatives, senators elected as senators for the first time. Number 4, the appointment of senators as chairmen and members of committees shall be carried out in such a manner as to reflect the 6 geopolitical zones of the country, and there shall be no predominance of senators from a few geopolitical zones.
Well, Senator, the reason I raised that...
The selection of Senate president shall
my apologies. My apologies.
This is what is contained.
Yeah, my apologies. The reason I raised that is it constitutional? I don't know if I've seen it in the current constitution, even as with all the amendments. How valid is it if it's not in the constitution?
Well, if we say that it is not valid because it's in the Constitution, then one part of the country can afford to take president and vice president and then tell the other part of the country you don't matter. Again, if it were not constitutional, there are things that we take that are conventional and more and stronger than Constitution. It would have been possible for the North to again take the presidency because they may have some votes for that political party to make it win one way or the other, that is according to the permutation that was brought out, but it wouldn't bring peace. But the northern governors under the Progressive Governors Forum said, look, although we can, let us not take, let us zone the presidency to the south and let the south oscillate between southwest, southeast, south-south.
Well,
and
Senator,
you saw that in the contestation.
Yes.
You saw the southeast contest, southwest contest, and the south-south contest, and His Excellency, the President-elect Asiwaju Tinubu won the nomination, and as one or two won the election.
My sincere apologies. It would seem like I'm just raising issues that are irrelevant. The reason for this question is, how significant has it been in the welfare of the people, the lifestyle of the people so far? It would seem like this whole zoning arrangement is more for political interests as opposed to governance interests, because there are those who are wondering in the various zones that have occupied any of the positions, the 6 major positions that you've listed. They're wondering, how has that position really affected their lives or brought governance or any seeming significant relevance to their lives, simply because their kinsman is the president of the Senate or deputy speaker of the House?
Well, this is what you need to interrogate the holders, the occupants of those offices, because it's intended that they ought to be of great influence in their zones. If we are creating 5, 6 universities, You don't allow the Senate president to take all to his state, for instance. And if this is, if there are other things, you have to sit and balance, because the president is almost always sitting with the Senate president, the speaker, the vice president. If the vice president is from the southwest, as it is, then you have to make sure that whatever things are shared, you are the number 2 citizen. You make sure you balance the southeast. Make sure you balance the southwest. Make sure you balance the south-south. Make sure also that there is justice for the north central. And the president is from the north. It is intended that, yes, you're president for all over the country, but your people will also ask, what were you able to bring? I go away from the executive. You are in the legislature. The powers of the presiding officers over budget of the country is enormous. It is almost inestimable. It is so overriding, because the way budget is run, although wrongly, after the budget is passed on the floor, I'm sorry to say this on air. In fact, I'm not sorry. If we are not happy about it, let us change it and make sure that it comes to the real position. After budget is passed, the frame is passed, the figure is passed, a lot of other inputs goes in to accommodate the presiding officers, good, to accommodate the principal officers next, and to accommodate chairmen of committees next. It is at that time that some other inputs are done. Don't go again to talk of the budget of the agencies and budget of the parastatals. If you go to the FEMA, Federal Road Maintenance Agency, you will see the impact that principal officers or presiding officers have had in the budget of those adult institutions in their own area and zones on states specifically. You'll see the impact they have had. If you go to the Central Bank, go to Communications Commission, go to Port Authority, go to most of these grade A parastatals, you'll see the fact that the chairman of those committees have had inputs in the budget of those which does not come to the floor. You'll also see the impact it will have then. If you come to when we passed the budget, or when we passed the Niger Delta Development Commission, in 1999-2000, the presiding officer, the deputy speaker then, had to ensure that the part of the thing that we put in the law, or where it was, with the influence of the governor, was made to be in Port Harcourt. You understand? So this is why that each of these presiding officers is necessary, and each of them has to protect their region and their block.
Senator,
I'm sorry if I've gone too far.
We would definitely have to bring you back to explain how this plays out, because at the end of the day, what the Nigerian citizens are looking for is to see a budget that will cover their welfare as well, but that hardly comes out. Their representatives don't seem to cater to that part of the welfare of the citizens, because if you ask now how much of the budget is spent on each citizen of Nigeria, we may not be able to get that data. So we'll definitely bring you back, but I want to thank you so much for coming in this morning to talk about the leadership of the 10th National Assembly. Senator Itai Enang, former chairman, House of Representatives Committee on Rules and Business, former chairman, Senate Committee on Rules and Business, emeritus advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari on National Assembly matters, Senate, and former governorship aspirant, Akwa Ibom State APC 2023. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, and thank you.
We look forward to seeing you again. Sunrise Daily will be back in a moment. Do stay with us.
Some identities cannot be mistaken, like your business name and your account name. Your business name if it be shootlace, then the account now, color carry. If I see him, I block him straight. You don't understand? Don't confuse your customers. Sign up for a Money Point business account today and get a business account in your business name in minutes from your shop banker. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Whatever it takes to make sure you have a business account opened in your business name, we'll do it as your sure banker. Open a bank account in your business name with MoneyPoint.
When you have cavities, it hurts so bad it makes you miss school. Even football.
But we prevent cavities before they form with Colgate. Colgate locks calcium in.
Keeps cavities out.
Day by 8 a.m. I mean, it's about now. The doors should have opened by now to let the participants in. The lawyers, you see all the lawyers, the journalists, everyone's there, accredited and waiting to step into the chambers where the tribunal sitting, pre-hearing sitting, will be holding today to determine and put out a schedule how it will go, Makwe.
Indeed, our correspondent, Ella, is going to have a very, very busy time this season. Indeed. Covering what is happening at the Presidential Election Tribunals. We do know that this tribunal has been set up all over the country, and there are different levels to this, depending on which particular election is being disputed. We do know that that of the presidential election, even though it's a tribunal, starts at the Court of Appeal. And then, is when the parties are not satisfied, wish to push it further, that they go to the Supreme Court. So just two levels to that. We know that all of this has to be concluded. That's for the Presidential Election Tribunal, from the initial Presidential Election Tribunal up to the Supreme Court. Everything must be done within a period of 10 months. But there has been a lot of agitation before now as to whether or not we shouldn't be looking at having a situation whereby our election petition tribunal sittings are concluded before inauguration. How possible is that, assuming we're to aspire to that particular standard or level? What are some of the issues going to be considered here? What are some of the evidences that will be required from the Election Petition Tribunal, given how our electoral laws have also changed over the season? And don't forget that this electoral law is the very first time we're trying out the Electoral Act 2022. And with the introduction of the beavers, even though we've seen it introduced in a few off-season elections, this is the first time it's been introduced on such a large scale. How is that going to affect the evidence that will be brought before the tribunal judges? So these are some of the questions we'll be considering, and we hope to be getting reports from our correspondents much later on how the pre-hearing has gone and what the issues being brought up for contention are. But Nyota, we have a guest in the studio.
Yes, indeed. We'll keep you updated on what's happening at the Election Petitions Tribunal. But back here in the studio, the Electoral Act, Section 130, says no election or return at an election under this act shall be questioned in any other manner other than by a petition complaining of an undue election or undue return, referred to in this act as election petition. To help us look at exactly what's going to be happening at the election petition tribunals, the 180 days that the tribunal is mandated to sit, we have in the studio Isaac Anumudu, who's a lawyer and policy analyst. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Anumudu.
Thank you for having me.
So today, the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal begins its sitting, starting with a pre-hearing sitting, and they're meant to sit. Is it the one? Let me start from asking this question: the 180 days for this sitting, do they start today, or would they begin to count after the pre-hearing sitting, which is today?
It should have started being counted from the time the petitions were filed, because that's when the work of the tribunal was activated. Don't forget, this is not the first time the tribunal is sitting. Hearing is only commencing today. Most pre-hearings had gone on last month of April. If you remember, there was an objection by the APC that the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, P2B, was not even qualified to have, contested the election ab initio. That application has already been taken and dismissed by this petition tribunal, for your information. So that tells you that the tribunal is already working, had taken some applications already. Some house, keeping and house clearing job has already been done. What we expect the tribunal to do today is to go into substantive hearing of the petition.
But they called it a pre-hearing sitting.
Well, I wonder why they called it so. Maybe journalists may have seen it from that angle, just like I'm telling you now. If I wasn't telling you that the tribunal has already started sitting and has already taken some decisions, perhaps not every Nigerian would have known that. The concern, however, people seem to have is on the entire modus operandi of the tribunal and the issue you just raised in your intro about the time within which the tribunal should go about its job and the effect it will have on the polity. And I'm sure you would have been referring to Section 285, subsection 6 and 7 of the Constitution. And that section talks about giving the first tribunal, which is the Court of Appeal, 180 days within which to conclude its hearing and determination of the appeal, while Section 285, subsection 7, now subsequently gives the Supreme Court, which is the final court on this matter, 60 days, 2 months, within which to hear and determine the appeal from the Election Petition Tribunal. Now, many people have misconstrued this to indicate that the tribunal must spend 180 days. If you read that section, nothing in that section says or even suggests that. The only thing that section seems to say is to impress on members of the tribunal the need for expedition, for speed, in view of the sensitive and peculiar nature of election petitions, that they must not exceed 180 days. But there's nothing there that says they must wait for 180 days. No.
And they must use it all up.
Or they must use it all up. Nothing says that these petitions cannot be concluded in 7 days. Nothing also says that the Supreme Court must use up the entire 60 days, 2 months before it decides the appeal. In fact, to underscore the exigency, the Constitution went further in Section 285, subsection 8, to say that in order to expedite, nothing warrants even the tribunal to give reasons for its judgment. In other words, the tribunal can simply say, this is our judgment, we'll give you reasons later, just to ensure that this thing is expedited. That's what Section 285, subsection 8 says. That underscores it. And that's why most Nigerians, like someone like former president of the NBA, Dr. Olisabakoba, had been clamoring for some radical proactivity by the tribunal, because this petition, the way it is structured, is such that it can, in my opinion, be disposed of in 7 days, maximum 14 days. If you give me time, I'll tell you how it can be done. Go ahead. For example, the candidates have 4 major grounds for their petitions. I'm talking about the 2 major candidates. There may be other candidates, but the Labour Party, the PDP, and their presidential candidates have filed petitions. And, for example, and their petitions are similar. The summary of it, which is they're challenging the declaration of the APC candidate as president-elect on one major ground, that the constitutional requirement for that declaration was not met at all, and therefore INEC ought not to have made that return. They feel very strong about it, whether rightly or wrongly. And they hinge that on Section 134, subsection 2, A and B of the Constitution, which says that for you to be declared the president-elect, where there are more than 2 candidates, you must have scored to 25% of 2/3 of the votes in two-thirds of the states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. And they said, whatever you've scored, if you did not score 25% of votes in the Federal Capital Territory, you should not be declared president-elect. Now, they have their reasons. The other parties feel, no, it doesn't. It's wrong in law. They cited many cases, you know. And the other people too have the argument. They say, how can you say you must get 25% of FCT? If you get 25% of about 30 states, why should FCT be the decider? The other side of people are saying, no, you must interpret the law the way it is. We lawyers have various modes of interpretation. We have the golden rule, the jus generis rule, and all the other rules. But the basic is the literal rule, where the law is literally clear. Don't add anything to it. And the law says you must have two-thirds of, you know, this two-thirds, 25% of two-thirds says, and means conjunction, and means plus, and means including, and means together with. And they now raise the argument that what if WAEC said, the university said you must get English and maths before you are admitted to read medicine. And you now get 8 other credits, 10 credits, but you lack English, you lack medicine. Would they admit you? The answer is no. So if that's what the law says, that can be decided by the tribunal. It doesn't need 180 days. You can call the lawyers because the result for FCT is on the table. INEC has the certified result. It's online. If this party did not make 25%, come, all councils, come and address us. The tribunal can invite the parties, come and address us one day or 2 hours. Does this lack of 25%, is it fatal or it's not? And after addressing, the tribunal can adjourn to the next day and give its decision and even tell you that I will give you reason later. That's what Section 285 sub 8 empowers them to do. Now, if that fails and does not disqualify the APC candidate, you can go to the next one, which is the grounds of the opposition under Section 115 of the Electoral Act, which forbids double nomination. Section 115D specifically forbids a candidate from taking nomination forms and filling nomination forms for 2 elective positions. It even went further to criminalize that misadventure in Section 115 subsection K, 1K, by saying that the person will even be sentenced to 2 years imprisonment if you are found to have filled 2 nominations. Now, the opposition parties allege that the vice presidential candidate of the APC filled 2 nomination forms for both Senate and vice president. Now, they are saying that that is fatal, considering the clear, unambiguous provisions of Section 115 of the Electoral Act. The matter is before the court, so we cannot conclude that this person is right or that person is right. But it is something that the tribunal can ventilate and deal with in 1 day. Address me for 2 hours. The forms are there. Certified true copies can be procured from INEC. Address us that by law, should this candidate be disqualified? Because if the vice president is disqualified, automatically it will affect the presidential candidate, like what happened in Bayelsa, where the deputy governorship candidate was disqualified for, you know, incongruities and issues of forgery. Automatically, that was what affected Leon, who was the APC governorship candidate, who was already conducting his parade for swearing in the next day, and the Supreme Court judgment came, and that was it. PDP became the governorship, it became in charge of governor of Bayelsa State. That exactly is what will happen because it's a joint ticket. Once one is affected, it affects the other.
If they go for that.
If they go for that. And that does not require 7 days because it does not require calling of witnesses. It requires getting the certified true copies and the parties addressing the court on what the law says on that. Now, assuming you scale that second hurdle, there is the third hurdle, the issue of the non-forfeiture, non-committal forfeiture that happened in the United States of America for $460,000. Was it fatal? Is it such that falls within the contemplation of our Constitution that any person so convicted or so found guilty for anything money laundering, blah, 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 should not aspire or should not be validly elected as our president? That, again, is sub judice. I can't stay here now and say this is the correct argument or the other one. But the parties are strongly contesting that that is an issue. If it is so, it doesn't also require you to call witnesses from the 774 local government. No. All you need to do is someone, whoever can give you certified true copy of that judgment, which you're already seeing online. and get the parties to address the court. What is the legal effect of this on the candidacy of the APC? 1 week is enough for that. 1 day for this party, 1 day for that party, 1 day for that party. And the tribunal adjourns for 2 days and delivers judgment.
You know, all your submission so far point to the fact that the delays in resolving political issues as regards elections are caused by the lawyers themselves.
In some cases, yes. In fact, in most cases, yes. Because I'm not trying to blow the trumpet for our judges. They are there to do the work, and they are ready. Some of them sit till evening. You won't know. Except some of us know that sometimes the tribunal sits on Saturdays and Sundays and sits even late into the night and are willing to do the job. But sometimes some of we lawyers come with all kinds of applications which they must listen to based on Section 36 of the Constitution, which guarantees fair hearing. So that is what we are calling for here is, that's why I used the initial word, judicial proactivity. That's the best word I can use for it. I can't say judicial activism. We don't want radicalized judiciary. But there can be judicial proactivism where the judiciary now takes the temperature, gauges the mood of the country, and say, wait a minute, we are not here for decoration. We are an independent arm of the government. We have the executive, we have the legislature, we have the judiciary. Elections have been conducted by the executives. The legislature has made the electoral acts that enable that election to go on. Now it's on our table as the judiciary. We have the final say, and we must say it as it is without hearing whose ox is God. If they have that attitude, they come up with practice directions, which they are entitled to, which they already have. Election petitions practice direction. They can amend it. The presiding officer can issue an order, amending it and saying, for this purpose, we are going to deal with these 3 issues within the next 3 weeks, within the next 2 weeks, within the next 1 week. Therefore, counsel, come tomorrow, prepared to address us on X, Y, Z. It's only when these 3 fail that you now talk about calling witnesses from all the states that some of the candidates claim they had more votes. The PDP candidate claimed he got more votes in Adamawa than was accredited to him. He got more votes in Rivers than was accredited to him. The Labour Party candidate claims that he got more votes in Lagos, more votes in Rivers, more votes in Plateau, more votes in Kaduna that was credited to him. And that if those votes are actually returned back to Labour Party, like the case of Lagos where the PDP person even came on air and said Labour Party got 955,000 votes, but they were given 550 votes. Now, if just 400 votes, they are calculating, it's all given back to Labour Party. Labour Party claims that it got majority of lawful votes in the election. PDP claims so. APC also claims so. So that is the one that may require you to call witnesses, look into IREB, as you said, look into, the details of beavers. But we don't, and we must not get to that. If any of these 3 issues I have mentioned comes out successful, so the tribunal can, because of the mood of the country, where you see people feel restless. And let me tell you why it's very important. Section 13 of the Constitution. Let me read it for you, so that you understand why most Nigerians are feeling the way they are feeling as to why the tribunal should adopt a very proactive attitude to this. I read Section 13 of the Constitution. It says, it shall mandatorily, it shall be the duty and responsibility of all organs of government and of all authorities and persons, organs of government including judiciary, and of all authorities and persons exercising legislative, executive, and judicial powers to conform to, observe, and apply the provisions of this chapter of this Constitution. And what does this chapter say? The next one, chapter 14, section 14, says, the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall be a state based on the principles of democracy and social justice. Now, what is the social justice here? If 3 people have contested election and a result has been declared, and that result, the law allowing the announcement of that result provides for that result to be subjected to scrupulous judicial ventilation, and parties have gone to court. Is it not just? Is it not mandatory by Section 13 and 14 for the tribunal to expedite, when it has power so to do, to expedite and come to a decision before any of these 3 people are sworn in? Is it not just? Is it not social? We are all 3 contesting for something. You've been declared, and I feel wrongly, you shouldn't. She feels wrongly, you shouldn't. Why? And there is enough time. There is 2 months. There's even more than 2 months for this issue between the three of us to be resolved so that if it's yours, we all congratulate you and wait for the next 4 years. If it's yours, the whole country moves forward. Well, because right now, there's anxiety, there's agitation. Even investors are waiting.
Mr. Nomodu, we do not have 2 months now to swearing in.
Yeah, no, we don't.
Right now, I think today is already the 8th.
No, I was talking about from when the election was conducted.
Indeed. So the 8th of May was, today is the 8th of May. That's where we are now. Yeah. I think we have about 21 days or so.
21 days.
21 days to swearing in. Now, these agitations came in shortly after the presidential elections. I think they're also being asked for the governorship elections as well. I mean, how this is going to all work is very unclear. But we do know that we've made some progress in terms of the time frame that we used to have. It is 180 days time frame. Was not, it didn't just fall from the sky. It was as a result of our experience whereby a president would have been in office 3 years, a case is also still being heard. So if right now, as stipulated by our Electoral Act and our Constitution, we now have a time frame of 180 days. Some people will say, what's the hurry? Why are we hurrying?
Exactly. That's why I'm saying the hurry. First of all, let me use this opportunity to also call on the incoming 10th National Assembly to quickly amend Section 285 to provide that all election contestations should end before swearing in, because it's actually unfair and offense Section 13 and 14 of the Constitution. It does not create for the social justice that should exist in our electoral process. But having said that, just like you rightly said that in the past it would take 3 years, sometimes it's even a month or 2, 3, almost 4 years before the final judgment will come. And so the whole thing would have become academic then. Now, if it is possible to bring it down to 180 days, plus another 60 days, which is 8 months, if it were possible to bring it from 3, 4 years or ad infinitum to 8 months, it's still possible to bring it down to 2 months. It's very possible to bring it within 8 weeks. I've just told you how it can be done. I've just told you how, if any of these 3 issues succeeds, that is what ends the election petition. And if they don't succeed, you can now go into the other issue and give parties time limit within which they would call their evidences. So even as we are right now, all hopes are not lost. If the tribunal decides to follow this proactive approach, all they need to do as the sitting starts today is to reel out the practice direction to the lawyers. We want you to address us on this and this. We want to deal with these 3 issues first before we go into the issue of which parties scored majority of lawful votes as contemplated by Section 134, subsection 3 and 4.
From what you also, what I also heard you say, you want the Supreme Court, the Electoral Tribunal to be given judgment on each case as it proceeds. Is that correct?
Not on each case as it proceeds, but to take what I would call preliminary issues. Issues that will not require the whole evidence from across the country. Because these 3 issues I've mentioned are not issues that will require evidence from polling agents, returning officers, state collation officers, and all that.
But what you're saying is that it should give a decision on each one as it goes.
As it goes. It will just allocate a week to deal with these 3 issues. They can even say, address us on all these 3 matters. And we take 2 days, 3 days to give our decision on them.
So let's even grant that happens. You know, that the Elections Petitions Tribunal does that, and then maybe, perhaps for whatever reason, it doesn't succeed, and then they say, okay, let us take the one where all the evidences come together. Maybe they're even able to handle all of that within a month or thereabouts, or even 6 weeks. What about the Supreme Court? Because oftentimes, from what we know, our litigants are never satisfied with the first court of instance. They always want to get up to the Supreme Court. It's like as if the Supreme Court eventually must have a say in these issues. Don't we see that the Supreme Court sittings might also, you know, go past the inauguration date?
That's what I'm saying. It would only happen because the law as it is now allows it. That's why I started by calling for urgent amendment of the Constitution, Section 285, subsection 6 and 7. Should be urgently amended because it does not conform with Section 13 and 14 of the same Constitution that demands mandatorily social justice for everything you do in Nigeria. But even going by the question you asked, I'm saying that the Court of Appeal, which is the Election Petitions Tribunal of First Instance, and the Supreme Court can issue practice directions that limit the parties to the time within which they should conclude their cases. The law allows that. And that's what we are calling on them to do, considering the mood of the nation. The country is more divided than it has ever been. Politicians have exploited our religious and ethnic fault lines. Do we need urgent healing? We need urgent amity and concord for progress and prosperity for our nation. Investors are waiting to see which direction to commit their investments in this country. So even, let me tell you, even the bandits are waiting and watching. Have you not noticed that since election, the banditry has seemingly subsided? Have they all died? No. Have you noticed that kidnapping has seemingly subsided? They've not gone out of the face of the earth. They are apparently surreptitiously waiting to see the outcome, which means they also react to our electoral process. That is why the courts should be very urgent about this, because it affects our security, it affects our economy, it affects our unity, our love and progress.
Mr. Anomodu, we want to thank you so much for coming. But just before you go, now they have 180 days for the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal, and you talked about the need to speed up things. What about the governorship's Petition Tribunal? That hasn't even started sitting yet.
No, those ones are also going on simultaneously. They've started, it's just that they're happening in the states.
Okay.
They've started, and they should apply the same speed also, so that we can all make progress as a country.
All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Isaac Anomodu is a lawyer and public analyst, policy analyst. Thank you for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Sunrise Daily will be back in a moment. Don't go away.
Oh, I wish you were here.
I'm always with you.
But it's not the same without you.
MTN 5G's amazing technology will change how we experience life and the internet. Get ready to encounter the incredible, and remember, no be juju, na MTN 5G.
When you have cavities, it hurts so bad it makes you miss school. Even football.
But we prevent cavities before they form with Colgate. Colgate locks calcium in.
Keeps cavities out.
Governor Hope Uzodinma is not owing any salary arrears. In fact, the governor has directed that the few workers who deliberately refuse to participate in the verification exercises be paid their salaries. What the NLC should have done was to fix a date to conduct a fresh election. Instead, the NLC president insisted that he must force IMO workers to accept his brother and schoolmates as the NLC chairman. IMO workers are yet to come in terms with the NLC president. You will agree with us. Not only workers will resist your proposed strike in IMO, but the entire IMOites. We therefore call on our revered CWC members to think twice and never allow themselves to be deceived, and there is no need for any strike action in IMO.
How far is that gone and how far is it going is the issue we want to look at this morning, perhaps against the background of the fact that the National Industrial Court sitting in Owerri issued an interim order restraining the NLC and TUC or any of its agents or affiliates from embarking or continuing to embark on any strike action in Imo State pending the hearing and determination of the motion and notice. And but then what we're hearing now, the displeasure and discomfort people are encountering or enduring is very real to them. Let's have a conversation around this morning with Joe Ajero, who is President, Nigeria Labour Congress. He joins us virtually, along with Einaya Onwegbu, Chief Political Advisor and Head of Political Bureau to the Imo State Government. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Well, let me begin with you, Mr. Ajero. Against the backdrop of that order of court, how has the NLC received it in the light of action already been taken?
Well, the NLC is a law-abiding organization. Should we receive any order of court, we'll abide by it.
NLC has not received that order because, if memory serves me right, this dates back to 3 days ago.
Well, we're just hearing it the way it's been announced by you. If that means service under the law, then it means we have received it. But if we receive the service, we acknowledge it and respond accordingly. We are not known to have, no court orders.
Is that to say that the NLC is not on strike in Imo State or against activities of the Imo State people in any way right now?
I don't understand you. So if the NLC was not on strike, actually in Imo State, why was the order given in the first instance?
So essentially you're saying NLC is on strike in Imo State right now?
NLC has been on strike in Imo State.
Okay. So, but then how then do you respond to what we heard Mr. Basile say earlier about the fact that the NLC in Imo State is not going to join the strike?
Basile, who is not our functionary, he can't speak for us. Basile, who is a functionary of the Association of Senior Civil Servants and a functionary of the TUC. Two organizations have subjected him under disciplinary procedure. So I will not comment on what is happening in another organization.
How about Philip Iwansi, who is said to be the chairman of NLC in Imo State, who is said to have made a similar comment?
Well, Philip Iwansi ceases to be the chairman of NLC in Imo State after the election of NLC Delegates Conference in all the states of the Federation. All the executives prior to that time were dissolved and the election conducted. In 3 states where elections were inconclusive, Imo, Abia, and Osun, caretaker committees were set up. Philip Iwansi can't act a day after that date. But the Imo State government is calling him their own. They have cloned him to be their own chairman, not chairman of NLC.
So then, who is the chairman of the NLC in Imo State?
The chairman of the NLC in Imo State is Mr. George Ofebu. That's the caretaker committee chairman until election is conducted in Imo State. But after the dissolution of state branches, we don't allow a vacuum if the election is inconclusive, especially in Imo State, where the state government went there and attacked the workers and disrupted it. Our leadership there, our ESCO there can't be, leaderless. They can't be without a leader. So we appointed a caretaker committee, same Abia, same
there seems to be some audio issues that we need to quickly deal with. Mr. Ajero, come back to you. Mr. Onwegbu, so as you have heard the chairman of the president of the NLC say, they have been on strike in Imo State. How has the government received it? Perhaps I should ask first, in the light of what he just said now about the fact that the NLC seems to have, the government of Imo State seems to have an NLC chairman of theirs. Meanwhile, there is a completely different person who is chairman of the NLC according to the national leadership of the Congress.
Well, the first thing to say is that our brother comrade Joe Ajero, it looks like he's becoming a commander more than a comrade. It is unfortunate that he, who is ordinarily a non-resident native, is trying to mislead the public as to the facts of this matter. The NLC in Imo State tried to have an election supervised by a returning officer sent by the national leadership of NLC. Imo State government was never a party to that election and did not even have an observer status. What happened was that the two contestants, including the man he mentioned, Mr. George Opara, who is from his local government and his old schoolmate, wanted to contest for that election. The returning officer, in course of their failure to agree on modalities, had cause to postpone the election. What George did was to go back and announce one of the contestants, Mr. George Opara, as a caretaker committee chairman. You ask him, in Abia he mentioned, did he announce a contestant as a caretaker committee chairman? He has otherwise given George the chairmanship of the NLC Imo State. How would it sound that a man you are contesting an election with is now inheriting him as a caretaker chairman? It will look like our presidential election. If by any fourth election didn't hold and our kinsman, P2B, is announced as caretaker president of Nigeria, you would have given him the presidency. That is what George sought to do for his fellow over a Northman and old schoolmates. But the workers in Imo State resisted it, and they said, we have a good relationship with the state government, and we are not on strike. There is no worker in Imo State who is at home as at this morning I'm speaking to you. What he did was to use his connection as the leader of the electricity workers to remove Imo from the national grid. And the inconvenience we are suffering is because there is no electricity supply to Imo State, courtesy of our brother, Joa Jero, who ordinarily thinks that an NLC president is still in the days of the military dictatorship and not a constitutional democracy where people have right of association, where you must give notice before you declare a strike. On the day the purported election failed, the same evening he announced a caretaker committee. On May 1st, when a motley crowd of his own supporters said they gathered in a trade union office to have a May Day parade, which government was not invited, which nobody had notice of. George also on that day declared a strike in Imo. He seems to forget that the unions in Imo are semi-autonomous. It is actually the unions that send take-off dues to the national for national to survive. And if they cut the live wire, George would not be confident as a president of NLC. So he has a personal stake, having been a governorship aspirant in this state. He thinks he can do the Shomole transition when he finishes that tenure. He should let Imo workers and Imo residents enjoy the benefits of democracy by restoring our life. I'm happy he has agreed that there's a court order. Why would he not obey a court order?
Just a second, Mr. Nwegu. My apologies. Perhaps let us allow just a second, Mr. Nwegu. Let's speak to the substance of the issue so people understand why this rift in the first place. Is it something that could have been avoided? What exactly informed this strike to the best of the knowledge of the Imo State government?
What we heard from the NLC was that, he has called out 2 strikes in 2 months, unfortunately. In the first instance, the labor union in Imo tried to have a state election. 2 men were contesting. A returning officer was sent from the national. Unfortunately, the returning officer could not, for disagreement on some modalities, organize that election. He announced that there will be a further date. He postponed the election. But unfortunately, instead of waiting for the time to hold the election, George chose to announce one of the contestants, Mr. George Opara, as a purported caretaker committee chairman. That's what led to the first improvement. When the workers resisted that they did not want a contestant as caretaker committee chairman, he declared a strike. That's the first one. The second instance is on May 1st. Normally, naturally, customarily, traditionally, the workers have their labor parade at a public place. All the unions gathered, leadership gathered, the state government was invited. The state government took the parade for more than 2 hours standing. At the end of that event, we all went home, only to hear that from Joa Jero that there was a group of his own faction of labor leadership that met at the labor house, which organized the property made by Imo State government, that they were disrupted by thugs, purportedly sent by Imo State government. He did not tell us what police report or DSS report he relied on to link Imo State government to that disagreement. He now declared a second strike. It is that strike that on that same May 1st, he removed Imo from the national grid because he is
welfare of the electricity workers. And since then, we have been on blackout for public power supply. And this has nothing to do with Imo State government.
It's interesting that you put it that way, Mr. Onwegbu. I mean, electricity is a business. How one person would single-handedly do that, you know, beats the imagination. But let's ask Mr. Ajero some question. Just a second. Mr. Ajero, maybe you want to explain your own side, or rather the side of the NLC on this issue. What informed this strike in the first place?
Thank you very much. In the first place, I didn't know that this issue, we are going to bring an advisor to the governor, that his focus is Raji. I thought that we were to discuss issues. And I'm getting worried. And that's the level of name calling. Ordinarily, if I knew that it's an advisor you are bringing, I wouldn't have spoken. But let's speak to the facts. Since 2021, the Imo State government attacked the NLC secretariat in Owerri, destroyed everything in it, and took over that place with thugs. That place is still the same way today. If you go there and you see even a bottle that is not destroyed by Imo State government, you declare me a national liar. On
that, very quickly, my apologies, Mr. Ajero. That information you said is since 2001, 2021. Okay, I just wanted to, okay, go ahead.
As an agreement of 2001, do you want me to talk or you want me to talk from now?
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Based on that time, the issue then were that about 30,000 workers and pensioners were declared as ghost workers in Imo State. And we agreed that a joint committee be set up to look into this matter and clear it. Incidentally, the person who became acting chairman, not our chairman, because our chairman ran out of Imo State after that attack. The person who became acting chairman couldn't talk. For 3 years, we were asking him, have you even written a letter? He couldn't. What I have here is about 1,000 lists of the people, local government workers who have not received a dime as salary for 3 years. Their phone numbers, everything, the same thing in all unions, all over Imo State. Now, because they are comfortable with that leadership, when the election came, that leadership was challenged. The Commissioner for Information, Mr. Melumba, put a call across to me and said that Imo State government wants the sitting chairman and they don't want the other person coming. I said, let me give you a professional advice. If you want to support anybody, support him. We cannot stop another candidate from contesting. The following day, during the election, talks when they disrupted the election, the workers decided to continue. The DPO of Imo State House of Assembly police station now came marching with other police officers to tell them that based on orders from above, the election cannot continue and disperse them. On the basis of that, just like other states I mentioned, formed the caretaker committee and resisted it. Now, what he doesn't understand, there is a strike, conventional strike, that requires a strike notice. There is a white card industrial action. Get to your office, the manager slaps you, action starts immediately. It's a policy, it's a strike policy that is allowed conventionally all over the world. Now, between that time we started an action, the Imo State elders spoke to me and said, please give us 2 weeks to sort out all this issue. The strike was called off, and we gave Imo State government 2 weeks to address the issue. After 7 weeks, we did a letter again by the NLC General Secretary and TUC General Secretary to Imo State government. You say 7 weeks after, we are still waiting for this. Nothing happened. At the 9th week and May Day, Imo State government sent a circular that all workers should come to Hero Square, where the cloned chairman of Imo State NLC, organized by the state government, will address workers. And the workers under the NLC went to the NLC secretariat genuinely to hold their May Day. The Imo State government invited chairmen of town unions, traditional rulers, to their own mayday, and the workers were meeting. The workers wrote police, wrote DSS, wrote civil defense, who came to the NLC Secretariat in Imo State. As the event was going on, all the security agencies said they had been directed by the chief security officer of Imo State to pull out from the venue. And they pulled out, and the workers came in, beat people, destroyed things, people were hospitalized. And if you are in my shoes, as NLC president, what are you supposed to do? That was the same day that NLC leadership and TUC leadership met and resolved on how to respond to that. But you can see what is happening in Imo State is Ajay. It's a collective leadership. Ajay is leading the NLC. I can't shy away from that. NLC and TUC are involved in this. And as we talk now, for the past 4 days, we sent people there to negotiate with Imo State government. It took 2 days if Imo State government decides to meet.
Okay. Well,
between the last 2 days, as we talked this morning, Imo State government, through its governor, has been editing the agreement that has been concluded for almost 2 days now.
Well, Mr. General, my apologies. There are so many questions to ask you, but my colleagues in Abuja are yearning to go as well. Markwa, go ahead.
So indeed, it does appear that this disagreement predates your entry into office as the NLC chairman. However, it does appear that it's getting quite heated. This issue, for a number of people, only came to the fore. I mean, I am not very aware of what has been happening with the Labour Party, with the NLC and the TUC in Imo State, until only recently we saw the chairman of Air Peace complain about how flights going into Imo State were grounded, and they felt very strongly about those issues. The fact that the NLC is taking their protests to places like Abuja and Lagos and stopping flights going into Imo. Are these also some of the steps that NLC and the TUC are taking to press home their demands?
Well, thank you very much, Mokwe. The issue of Air Peace is part of the gang up, to destabilize what is happening in Imo State. When NLC and TUC declared the action, we had to picket, especially the airline and some other areas, from rendering services to Imo State. And it was peaceful. It was going on. If you ask whoever is the security detail that is at Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, there was agreement, gentleman agreement, that flights are not going to Imo State. With Air Peace. Air Peace started loading, they said they are loading for Port Harcourt, and they were landing in Owerri. The signal got across to the people in Lagos, and the Air Peace is landing in Owerri, because the workers there are vigilant at their own ground. And they went to Air Peace desk, and there was a fracas. The NLC chairman in Imo State was bruised, and eyeglasses destroyed. About 2 or 3 other women, were wounded, and they were rushed to the hospital. And there was about 2 or 1 hour disruption of activities before the leadership intervened. Even through the chief security officer of the airport there, who said, look, this is gentleman agreement, Air Peace is not going to violate it again. And operation started. Only for the Air Peace owner or chairman to go on air to say that he's fellow Igbo man. The NLC is not, organized around tribal or primordial sentiment. What happened there was exactly as I explained to you. And when we asked even the chief security officer of the airport, who came there on time to maintain peace, and even pleaded that all the people that were wounded should not go online, and we left. We explained that, look, this is a straightforward action, and we want an agreement with Air Peace. And he said, no, Air Peace will respect a gentleman's agreement. So that was what he saw, but I think the chairman decided to escalate it. But in trying to escalate it, he brought up interesting issues that he makes 700 million in 2 hours, and all that. So all those interesting issues, we are following it up. And, we already had issues with the airpeace for refusing to unionize since 2016. Because if it was a really unionized sector, there would have been a communication between the workers there and the workers of NLC and the aviation industry. And this matter wouldn't have happened the way it happened. So we're taking it off from there on airpeace and unionization, because they can't live in the land and decide not to obey the laws. And from our finding...
Mr. Jero, I just want to know, because right now it appears that the grouse you have is with the Imo State government and how it's treating its workers under the agreement. Is that correct?
The grouse we have, that is number one, Imo State government and how it's treating its workers. 2, violent attack on the workers. Destruction of NLC properties in Imo State, and the wounded workers that have not been treated. All this is cumulative.
Okay, so that is given, but the actions which you're taking seems to be extending beyond Imo State and even beyond the remits of the Imo State government. It appears that it's also infringing on the rights of ordinary Nigerians to be able to go about their own business. For instance, people who are just going to Imo State to carry out their regular business, they cannot now be served by airlines whom you're picketing. How does that, justify what it is that you're doing?
Well, if we are picketing, it has to inconvenience people. And our target is Imo State. We have not looked at any other state. We have not disrupted their activities. And as far as Imo State is concerned, whether tanker loading fuel to Imo State, whether airline, if there is train, whether train going to Imo State, all the areas that workers are involved, we have to equally withdraw services in those areas.
React to some of the things that you have heard Mr. Ajero say right now on this particular issue, including particularly the grounds of the activities of the NLC against the Imo State government?
Well, listening to Comrade Ajero, the first thing is to observe that he is manufacturing more reasons by the day. The reasons for the first strike in March was the election. The one for the current one was a counter or factional gathering of a purported NLC group at the Labour House. This is talking about what happened in 2021. He has never made any presentation. That's why he was the deputy national president then. As at that time, he has never he didn't make any complaint against Imo State government. It is not true that there are 10,000 workers of the local government who are out of work.
Mr. Nugu, just a second. True. You heard him say, you heard him say that the Imo State government got a 2-week notice for them to do the needful, address this issue, so that there is no need for any industrial action.
I don't know who is briefing him, but the local unions are not complaining in their relationship with the Imo State government. This has been the most friendly state government to the Labour. This is a government that provides...
Those are not our leaders.
Did you also hear him? Just a second, Mr. Ajero, just a second. Mr. Nugu, did you also see him display a list of 1,000 people who haven't been paid for quite a while in Imo State? Is that something you are aware of?
It is, what if it is a list of 1,000 he just flashed on us? You would ask him, has he sent such communication to the state government? And I am saying that there is no list of such nature. It is made up, and he has never complained about that.
Mr. Nugu, just a second, because we are running out of time. My apologies. You'll be able to speak a little, more now. But generally, people do not trust government. So anything you say could just as well, and everything you've said so far is to deny that these things have happened without displaying or giving any alternative position as to what exactly happened. In 1 minute, can you tell us whether or not these things are true because you don't have the facts, or that you just denying because you need to deny?
No, it is not true, because if there is such fact, it is the membership of the Labour in Imo State that will be on national television complaining. Channel TV would have before now been airing such news. It is not true, it is made up. What is more important to us is that from the local leadership? The answer is no. Is there any disagreement on fact with the leadership of Imo NLC? The answer is no. The man he seeks to impose as caretaker committee is less than 1 month away from that office. So
all right. Well, Mr. Nugu, my sincere apologies. We're completely out of time. We hope we'll be able to bring you back to discuss this a little further, but we're out of time at this time. Inaya Onwegbo is Chief Political Advisor and Head of Political Bureau to Imo State Government, as well as Joe Ajero, who is President, Nigeria Labour Congress. Both men joined us virtually. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And that's the much of Sunrise Daily we're able to take this morning. Thank you for the privilege of starting your week with you. I'm Ayo Makine. Have a wonderful day.
It is indeed a privilege. Thank you so much for watching. I mean, a privilege to have been a part of your morning. Thank you. I'm Maupelgun Yusuf.
And I'm Nel Taigwe. I was just checking to know whether I had any messages for us. But hey, go there and have yourself a beautiful day and enjoy the rest of your week.
Hi, I'm Pat Rankin, and they don't call me World Best for no reason. I only deal with the best, be it auto or business. 100% claim is always guaranteed.
Welcome to world-class insurance services. We are Anchor Insurance.
Where insurance truly works.
Hello, top of the morning to you. Welcome to our special coverage of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I'm Olumide Macaulay. The headlines. Wagner Group Chief Yevgeny Prigozhin says he's received a promise of more ammunition from the Russian army after he threatened to pull his frontline troops out of Bakhmut. Ukraine downs a Russian hypersonic missile over the capital, Kyiv, using a newly acquired U.S. Patriot defense system. Russia says it destroys 22 Ukrainian drones over the Black Sea. Thank you for joining us. Let's get straight into it, where Wagner Chief Yevgeny Prigozhin says his group have been promised overnight as much ammunition and weapons as they need to continue